The story begins with a scene of destruction. Buildings collapse. People scream in fear. Confusion reigns and panic spreads as the people scramble to save themselves from an uncertain fate. The monsters are huge, frightening, and very intimidating. They have come for some reason. People are hiding to save themselves from monsters. The young boy and his dog encounter a monster. The barking of the dog alerts the monster to their presence, and he tries to attack them. The kid is scared and screams with fear as the monsters try to attack him. A boy wearing a hooded jacket appears and vows to save the kid from the monster that is trying to attack them. Using his superpowers, he fights off the beast, punching it with all of his might until light pierces its body and shreds it apart. The superhero knows that the monsters are there for him. He's aware of his role in this destruction, and he takes it upon himself to save these people from a fate worse than death, being eaten alive by giant monsters. 8 months ago, now scene shifts to the actual beginning of this catastrophe. One day, a 19-year boy named Hanero was walking to school. He was small and frail. The other children often picked on him because of his quiet nature. Sangchun punched Hanero early that morning and told his friends to take a picture, bragging about how he had overpowered someone weaker than him. He wanted the photo so that he could increase his number of followers. During this period of his life, Hanero was unaware that he possessed superhuman powers. At the school, the students are all busy casually talking and chatting. Hanero is seen taking his meals and finding a place to sit peacefully all alone. He is constantly demeaned by his schoolmates. They call him Dogro, transfer student, an outcast. But the worst insult of all for Nahero is junkie bastard. The students push away his pills and tease him, asking if he takes Viagra. They continue to insult him by suggesting that he is impotent. The bullies continue to taunt Hero, calling him an orphan. He tries hard not to let the insults get under his skin, but Sangchun enters and kicks him for real, hard enough, telling that he is sick and needs physical therapy. Nero is furious but unable to defend himself. He feels some strange force holds him back. He's furious and would like nothing more than to fight back, but he can't move or retaliate in any way. It feels as if there is a chain around his body which prevents movement. He wishes to get angrier so that he gets fiercer. Lee Luna, a pretty girl studying in the same school, asks them to get out of the way as she needs water. Sangchun stares at her as she passes by, and his friends make a fuss over her beauty. She is confused seeing Nero in that state. He quietly leaves. She sees his pills fallen on the floor. Nero feels as if he is being pushed around by his classmates, and this only seems to be getting worse. But since Nero views himself as weak, he can't think of any way to fight back against the kids who make his life miserable at school every day. He feels lost and hopeless and steps on the terrace wall, thinks of jumping off, tired of all the constant bullying. He suddenly receives a message from his grandma asking for dinner. Furthermore, he recalls how important he is to her. He realizes she loves him unconditionally and backs off. Lost in thought, Nero is called by Yoongyong. Although they are classmates who care for each other, Yoongyong has never talked to him publicly, perhaps because he doesn't want others making fun of them as being the same. Yoongyong tells Nero that he should get down from the wall. It is dangerous there. In the classroom, students are gathered around a picture taken during their trip to Jeongju. When they look closely at it, they see something strange, a creature in one of the towers. They talk excitedly about what this might mean and whether there is any sort of supernatural explanation for its existence. Some of them wonder if it could be a ghost. Others dismiss the claim by saying that whoever made the photo probably just photoshopped it. In fact, there is a creature in the tower. It's strange and looks very terrifying. It keeps mumbling about how it must find a key. At home, Nero applies ointment to the cuts on his face. He hastily switches off all the lights before lying down in bed, trying to appear asleep. She calls him. When she enters her grandson's room, Nero feigns sleep under a blanket but fails miserably since it doesn't hide everything about this incident. After few minutes, Grandma come there and ask if you can have your dinner. He lies to her about having dinner with his friends. She tells inviting them next time. She senses the pain in his voice and knows he is lying. Seeing the bruises on her grandson's shirt, Grandma puts it in with the laundry and is shocked when she sees how badly he has been beaten. The night is dark and quiet. Empty streets stretch out in every direction, broken only by passing cars and one monster, which chases down a delivery van after spotting what appears to be a human inside. The monster is in need of human skin. The next morning, Grandma is busy preparing breakfast for Nero. He wakes up and checks his face in the mirror, only to find that the swelling has gotten worse. He's scared of facing Grandma after knowing how hurt Shu would be to know he was beaten up again at school. The monster attacks Grandma and claims to have the key he was searching for. She falls on the floor, but gets up all charged up, fighting off this intruder as if she knew him. Threatening that he go away and never return, Grandma fights with her special powers against him. She is determined to save Nero, the key. Nero thinks he hears a noise, but the grandma defeats the monster again and warns him to stay away. The monster says that no one will be able to stop him from finding Nero, but if they do, he'll come back until it is his. The grandma beats the monster up and defeats him with her power. Nero asks if there is something wrong as he heard some sound. She dismisses it by telling it is from the TV. He goes back into the bathroom. Nero feels better and sees that his wound has gotten better after bathing. Although, he is still worried to face Grandma, whereas even she has bruises on her face after the face-off with the monster. Both avoid each other for breakfast. Nero is running on the field with his classmates at school. He appears disturbed by her grandma's expressions that morning. He believes she was concerned about something. Furthermore, he returns and realizes he needs to run faster and not be late like he always is. He collapses on the ground. Not only that, but he has a strange dream about a strange place and wakes up with a sharp pain in his head. He is perplexed as to why this dream keeps repeating itself when he sleeps. Furthermore, he receives a phone call from his grandmother, who informs him that they will be vacating their home once more. He is stunned because this has been happening frequently. Furthermore, he recalls his childhood, when he had to transfer to different schools due to frequent relocation. He has the weird feeling that they are always running away from some unknown danger. He recalls how he was treated at school and how he never made friends because he was constantly changing schools. Grandma is concerned about how long she will be able to save Nero from the monsters. She believes they are coming to find him frequently. She feels sorry for Nero, who is unaware of this and must deal with the consequences of constantly changing homes and schools. The monster can be seen emerging from a strange, dark place, awaiting his next attempt. A vehicle passes by at night, and a man is seen singing and enjoying his ride. The monster scares him by climbing his vehicles. The man rams the vehicle into a light post, and a swarm of other monsters surrounds it. The next morning, a security guard is feeding a dog, and the dog is perplexed by what he sees and scratches the security guard before fleeing. He is astounded to see all of the dogs acting strangely. The vehicle has been abandoned there. Nero tells Grandma about the strange barking sound of the dogs at breakfast and wonders why they are so irritated today. Grandma is worried because she knows exactly what it is. Nero is pushed by his grandma and forced to leave for school. He informs her that he has not finished his breakfast, but she simply refuses to let him stay and pushes him out of the house, reminding him to notify his teacher about his transfer. Nero is walking down the corridor towards the lift, thinking about his grandma's strange behavior towards him. He notices that the elevator is occupied by a group of deliverymen. He finds it strange that so many deliverymen are heading towards the same house. He is called into the lift by a bystander and enters without looking to see which house they are going to. Nero is walking down the street, still thinking about the deliverymen, and he has a strange feeling that something is wrong. He comes across a delivery van and, curious, opens it to find it empty. He is surprised to see no parcels in the van and so many deliverymen around. Furthermore, he suddenly sees a deliveryman falling from the same floor as his house. Nero rushes to the elevator with fear and wonders if his grandma is fine. At home, Grandma is again in her superpower state and is fighting the group of monsters. Nero takes the stairs and runs with all his power to reach his home. Grandma punches all the monsters and defeats them. She throws webs from her body and breaks the bodies of the monsters. A monster who appears to be the leader enters and threatens Grandma to hand him the key. She attacks him, telling she doesn't have the key and the door are locked. She knows the monsters are looking for Nero. She strangles the monster with the webs. Nero almost reaches the house and tries to open the door but finds it to be locked. Grandma locks the door from within to stop Nero from seeing the actual situation here. The house is filled with remains of the monsters and blood everywhere. The monster calls Grandma Sana and says she needs to hand him Nero as she cannot save him further. He informs her that the master of these monsters, Kum, knows about Nero and he is after him. She is shocked to know that the king knows about Nero. She asks the monster to reveal how he knows about Nero. Nero keeps banging the door to open. The security guard feels something strange falling and searches to find nothing and feels he is just assuming things. A monster climbs the building and grabs Nero from behind. Grandma is unaware of this attack, and she keeps thinking to relocate from here before anyone finds Nero. Meanwhile, the monster has held Nero and he calls out for help. The monster takes Nero inside. Grandma is shocked to see Nero with the monster. She asks the monster to let Nero go. She tells him that he is just a human being and no one else. The monster doesn't believe her. He tries to attack Grandma. Nero is furious and tries to bite the monster and save Grandma. He keeps attacking the monster. Grandma also fights with the monster. She loses her left hand in the fight, yet she keeps fighting against the monster. The monster attacks her and immediately stabs Nero. He falls to the ground and blood flows out of his body. The monster addresses Grandma as head guard and says she fought with them for a mere human being. She attacks the monster and there is blood all over the place. Nero is lying on the floor and dreams of a sequence where he sees Sana escaping from a strange place holding the little Nero. A voice shouts for her to save Nero. He hears someone telling him to survive. He feels this voice is familiar and recalls an incident from his childhood where he is fighting with a boy who called him an orphan. The boy's mother comes and slaps Nero and scolds her son not to play with such spoiled kids. At present, Grandma is holding Nero's body and weeps as he is badly wounded. She places his head on her lap and cries. Grandma places his body in a room and wonders about all the happenings. She wonders how Kum's monsters came in search of them. She keeps thinking of Nero. She finally decides to use all her superpowers and hand over the weapon she took from the little prince back to him to send him to face those monsters. She uses her powers and transfers her powers in Nero and feels sad at the same time that he will have to go through a lot of tough times ahead. She ends her life to give all her powers to Nero and that is the only option she has to save him. It's the end of the head guard, Sana. Nero wakes up and finds himself alone in the room and calls for his grandma. A month later, Nero sits in the police station and scribbles something on the paper. The policeman is irritated with Nero's presence as he visits here every day to find his grandma. The police officer scolds Nero that just by coming here daily they would not be able to find her. He tells him that he has filed a missing report but has found no evidence of any kind like the luminol blood, fingerprints, and hair traces. Nero shows the paper and the office is startled to see the picture of the monster and thinks he is just narrating stories and tells him to go away. Another officer holds the man and pulls him away telling him to calm down. They tell Nero to go away thinking he is lying. Nero walks on the road disheartened clenching the paper on which he drew the monster. He sees the security guard of his building who also gave the narration as he saw nothing that day. The CCTV did not have any such evidence and it was only Nero who witnessed all those happenings. He lays down to rest and dreams of those instances and wakes up startled. He realizes it was a dream and wonders if it was never real but his grandma has disappeared in real. He feels all alone. The school authorities tell him to return back to school and maintain discipline by not spreading any rumors. Young meets Nero and asks him if he is back to school. He hears students discussing about his grandma. In the field, he runs many laps shocking everyone. The students wonder if he has changed in this past month. Nero himself is shocked to find his running much faster and easier than before. He feels like he can sense every minute movement around him. His senses have improved drastically. He feels someone is constantly watching over him. He has a strange feeling of someone always following him. He wonders if they are related to his grandma. He tries to follow the person but suddenly bumps into Lee Luna. Lee Luna casually talks to him and asks him if he is not taking his medications as he used to take earlier. Nero is surprised and realizes he hasn't taken his medicines since that day. He jumps and runs away telling he has something urgent to do. Sunken and his friends come and see Luna there. She walks away avoiding them and only thinks about Nero. At night Nero is walking on the streets and feels his body has changed a lot and he can feel every senses very strongly. And there is something up with him. He sees Luna there. She works at a convenience store nearby. He feels awkward to talk to her and bumps into a granny who is pushing a cart with cardboard boxes. Nero helps her to lift the fallen sheets and she delighted to see a young boy help her. Meanwhile, Sunken's friends visit the convenience store and are shocked to see Luna working there. They demand for cigarettes but she refuses as they do not have an ID and she cannot hand them the cigarettes as they are in school uniform. They tease her and tell her they will visit every day to increase her sales. They see the old granny sitting by the street and think of asking her to get the cigarettes on behalf of them. They offer her a 1,000 note and ask to buy them 2 packs of cigarettes. The granny refuses to buy them the cigarettes as she sees they are not yet allowed to smoke at this age. They trouble her calling her old granny and tell her she is too outdated to know the current trends. The boys trouble the granny and Nero watches it and scolds them to stop. They see him and call him Dogro. He asks them to let go the granny. They are angry with Nero for interfering and tease him by asking if the granny is his grandma. They pull Nero to a dark street nearby to fight with him and they constantly tease him. He falls down on the ground. The boy tries to kick him. Nero feels something strange happening within. Suddenly he holds the boy's leg and pushes him down. The boy is shocked and screams to let him go. He is shocked to see Nero fight back as he is used to being beaten up and never retaliates. Nero stands with all his might and fights with the boys. They scream and wonder how Nero has suddenly become so powerful. Nero himself is shocked and runs away from there, not knowing what just happened to him. Nero sits alone in a park and thinks to himself about that day when the monster stabbed him deep, and he recalls he did not have a single wound when he woke up. He feels since that day, his body doesn't seem to be his own and the power is not which he actually possessed. The next day at school, students discuss that Park Junhak was injured in some fight and has been hospitalized. Nero is shocked to learn that the boy has been so severely injured. Another friend who was present at the fight scene sees Nero sitting and asks him how did he trick his friend and injured him. Nero confesses he himself is confused about this. Young defends Nero and asks the boy to let him be. He gets angry as to why he is behaving like his caretaker. Nero stands up and the boy is shocked to see him so tall, well-built, and his eyes seem shining differently. He realizes something is really different in Nero and flees the spot. A boy walks with his dog Moonchai and casually talks to him about enjoying the walk. Nero passes by. The dog suddenly starts behaving strangely and is frightened to see Nero as if he saw something scary. Nero runs away to a terrace and sits thinking about the new developments in his life. He sees a heavy iron rod and tries his strength on it by holding it hard and sees the dent on the rod by his fingers. He cannot believe his eyes. He finally tries to lift it and tries with all his power, and for his amazement, he easily lifts the huge rod in one single hand and holds it above as if it was just a small piece. He is dumbstruck at his own sudden powers. The next day, at school, Park Junhak enters with an injured leg using crutches. The students murmur that he might have gotten into fight with someone or might have been robbed by Sunken. He sits beside his friend and tries to talk about Nero, but he is already frightened by what happened the day before and pretends to study. At the recess, students are having meals. Sunken pulls away the chicken pieces from his friend's plates. He calls Luna to sit with him and offer her more chicken. She walks past him, avoiding him completely, and goes to sit with Nero. She offers him chicken from her plate. Everyone is shocked to see them together as Luna is the most desired girl in school, and Sunken was trying since long to be with her. She's sitting with Nero, whom everyone considered as loser, was big blow to Sunken and his group. Sunken gets a hold of Park Junhak and asks him if Nero was the one who hit him. He cannot believe his friends as he got beat up by the biggest loser of his school. Park Junhak tells him about Nero's sudden powers and his eyes turning into something different. Sunken fails to understand this sudden change in Nero. Luna comes there and asks Sunken if he is really scared of Nero now as he has become strong. Sunken tells she might be joking as he can never be scared of that dogro loser. Luna tells us she understands that he might be scared, and if not, he should show him his power and put an end to all these rumors. Sunken feels pumped up and accepts it as a challenge to confront Nero. Nero receives a message asking him to come to the rear gate of the school at 6 p.m. He is shocked that everyone is talking about his one-on-one fight with Sunken at the rear gate. This news spreads like a wildfire in the school, and everyone is invited to the fight on a first-come first-served basis. Students talk about Nero as being weird. Some call him LHSS Luz, who hides his strength. Nero goes to the rear gate and Sunken is shocked that he showed up despite being beaten up by him before. Students gather around to watch the fight. Sunken instigates Nero, and he recalls the text message which stated that this ends only if he ends it by himself. He is all determined to end this constant bullying right now. Sunken tries to act cool and calls it unfair to fight with Nero, whom he considers a loser already. He gives Nero a chance to hit him first as he has always been beaten up before. Sunken tries to show everyone around how confident he is and pressurizes Nero to hit him first, and then start the fight. Nero punches Sunken on face and he falls hard on ground. Everyone around is shocked to see him fall with just one punch by Nero. Nero asks him to get up as the fight hasn't even started yet, but Sunken is unable to move and is injured just by a single punch of Nero. This startles the audience and the entire crowd is filled with weird silence seeing the strange turn of events. Sunken pleads Nero to stop hitting him and let him go. Luna is watching all this from the school terrace and thinks finally Nero has won. Nero walks back from school and Young stops him and hands him his bag, asks him if he is fine. Nero wonders he is changed, and the powers have taken away his ordinary life from him. Nero is unaware there is a strange monster in his house and is searching for something in the drawers. Nero enters the house and is drinking water, and the monster is on the ceiling watching Nero silently. Nero senses him and slowly throws a huge plant at him. The monster attacks him back and asks him who he is. Nero and the monster have a fierce fight between them. The monster is shocked to see the powers of Nero. He breaks the monster's arm by pulling it apart with all his might. The The monster tries to flee the building and jumps off. Nero follows him and tries to search him. He senses the monster and attacks him again. The monster is startled to see Nero in this state and tries to escape. Nero stabs him with an umbrella and holds him towards the wall. Nero asks the monsters about his attack and the reason these monsters keep haunting him. He says that they are in search of Sana, the grandma. Nero is shocked to learn that his grandma is Sana, the general of the guards. He also tells him that a month ago many of them had come for her, but none returned as she killed them all. Nero asks him the reason as to why they are trying to find her. The monster tells him that Sana ran away with the key, and Coom wants to find her and the key. Nero asks if they are demons. The monster mocks at him by telling if he is sure he is a human with all these sudden powers in him. Nero is confused. He wonders if he has really turned into a demon and is no longer a normal human being. The monster escapes from there. The monster sees a man who was walking by the street and senses he is drunk. He attacks the man. Nero is running on the streets, and he falls on the road, where a young boy notices him and tells his mom about Nero's face being strange. Nero feels very disheartened to know he is no longer normal and people might assume him to be a demon. Beyond the portal, in the demon world, it is seen that a skirmisher scout monster somehow reaches back to the kingdom among all the monsters who went to locate Sana. He is the only survivor who returns to the demon world. He stands before Coom and his minister. They ask him about Sana, and he informs them that she is dead. The king asks him if he got the key, but he says that she has disappeared without any traces and a young man is there in that house. Coom inquires about the young man and the monster tells him he is not an ordinary man and has superpowers with him and his powers are way beyond his reach. He further explains that the young boy is fast and his breath is freezing cold. Coom is shocked to hear this. The demon general, Chen, arrives and asks the monster about the young man and inquires him about his strange breath. He explains that his breath is like a cold fire. This agitates Chen and he kills the monster. They discuss the king's elder son who possessed the same breath as a cold fire and wonders if the king's descendant is alive. The two worlds of humans and demons have always been at war, and numerous victims have been killed in these wars. As time passed, the two worlds have developed a wall, and the humans remember demons as either a myth or a legend. The time has come for the walls between the two walls to crack, and the worlds will again come to war. Nero rushes to the police station, where the officers show him a footage of an alley where they keep investigating for some or the other reason. They see an old woman who resembles the description provided by Nero about his grandma. Nero is shocked to see it is her, his grandma. The officer also informs him that this place is famous for medicine market. He recalls his grandma giving him some medication every day. He asks the police officer to send him the address and rushes away. Furthermore, he reaches the address given by the officer where his grandma was spotted. He feels she came here for him to get his medication. He sees a medication store and asks the man to give him medicine. The man inquires as to whom it is for. Nero says for Sana. The man is stunned at the name and just leaves his work and says he would be back in some time. Nero finds it strange and follows the man only to see he tries to run away. Nero follows his and gets a hold of him and asks about his grandma. The man tells Nero his grandma used to buy medicine for him, a medicine which suppresses the superpowers of demons, and they can live in this world as humans. Nero wants to know further. He is shocked to know he is a demon and those medicines were to control his powers from showing so that others do not know about his truth. The man further explains about the world of demons and Sana was the greatest warrior and served the empress of the demon world. The king's younger brother Coom had built an army of his own and attacked the kingdom, killing the king and queen and most of their followers. Only a few could survive, and they escaped to this world of humans and started living a life pretending to be humans. The man asks about Sana and Nero sadly informs him about her death. The man feels bad for her and also warns Nero that he would be the next target as they will try to find what they are searching for and after Sana. Only Nero would be their main target. Nero thinks about all that happened and realizes his responsibility to fight T-demons. He decides to no longer hide like he used to. In the demon portal, Demon King Coom asks the general about the monsters he sent to find Sana. He informs him that none survived and Sana has passed the key to King's elder son, Nero. Coom tells Chen that it is time they enter the world of humans and conquer it. He says that they need Nero at any cost as he is the key to conquer everything. The gap needs to be closed and we need to enter the human world. At school, Nero is wondering if everyone knows about his fight with Gu Sunkan. He sees all his classmates greeting him and talking to him unlike other times when everyone ignored him. Yoongyong tells him that they all are happy that he defeated Sunken, as they could never fight that bully. Luna approaches Nero and asks him to meet her after school. Yoongyong answers on his behalf and agrees to meet. Nero is confused. He tells him finally people consider you as normal. Sunken is with his friends and he seems to be very angry for whatever happened with him at the fight. He is determined to take revenge from Nero. They approach Yoongyong. Sunken requests him to bring Nero to him to apologize, but Yoongyong senses the danger and says no. Sunken is agitated and hits him hard as he cannot accept a no from these nerds whom he considers as losers. He pushes Yoongyong hard on ground and hits him. Nero is disturbed in class and feels uneasy seeing Yoongyong missing from the class. He sees him coming out from the nurse's room and sees he has been beaten up. Yoongyong tells him about Sunken and Nero feels angry and wants to go and take revenge from Sunken on behalf of Yoongyong. Yoongyong stops him. He says he has learned that he needs to change too, just like Nero, to stop all this bullying. He reassures him to let him fight his battle. He says he wants to fight against bullying himself. Nero hurries to leave packing his bag. Luna sees him and asks about their meeting. Nero denies, telling he has something important to do. She feels bad. Sunken and his friends call Nero to accompany them, and Luna is shocked to see Nero going with them instead of meeting her. Sunken takes Nero to a place nearby and his friends try to attack him. Meanwhile, strange creatures walk in raincoats when it is not even raining. Students feel weird to see strange people walking around with raincoats in the school premises. The students discuss regarding these strange people walking around. They seem to be very creepy, and the students are scared watching them. They are the monsters, and they have come in search of Nero, and they sniff students to find who among them is Nero. Sunken and his friends attack Nero and taunts if he can fight them all together. He defeats all his friends. Sunken tries to attack Nero using a glass bottle. They suddenly hear the students screaming to save them. They run in fear. The monsters attack the students, and they run to save themselves. Yoongyong tries to see if something is wrong as he hears some strange sound and suddenly sees a monster approaching him. The students run in different directions, and Nero locks Sunken in the warehouse and runs to fight the monsters. Sunken is determined to kill Nero. Luna hears students discussing in the other floor that monsters have attacked the floor beneath, and she is shocked and runs. She has superpowers too. She uses her powers and fights the monsters. Nero comes and sees that there are many students lying on the floor being attacked by the monsters. He tells the monster to find a place to fight where there are no civilians, and runs away from that place so that other students are saved from the monsters. Sunken comes to attack Nero with the glass bottle and is unaware of the monsters around. He tries to attack Nero and is attacked by the monster, and he pins him to the wall. Sunken is shocked to see the monster and pleads Nero to save him. Nero thinks for a moment to save him or not, but at last he saves him by defeating the monster. Sunken is shocked that Nero saved him from the monster. In amazement, he asks if he is really a human. Nero is apprehensive to answer anything. They see another monster and some student fighting. They go closer to look and are taken aback by seeing Luna fighting with the monsters. She tells Nero to go to gym as there are civilians here and the monsters are after him and he needs to go away from here to save other students. Nero rushes to the gym of the school to keep the monsters away. He is attacked by the monsters and he feels that their only purpose is to kill Nero. He also feels that the monsters are stronger compared to earlier ones. Luna comes there and attacks them with some strange white webs which she throws at them. Nero is shocked to see that Luna has fought all the monsters so quickly and come to help him. Nero wonders if she is really a woman. Luna reminds him to leave the chit-chat for later and continue to fight the monsters, and they see that there are many monsters who are yet to be fought. They continue to fight the monsters together and find a huge monster whom they defeat using strategy by throwing a cloth on him to block him from seeing. Nero and Luna defeat all the monsters and see Yoongyong coming from the door, and he seemed injured. Nero is shocked to see him in that state, but Luna notices that something is strange about him and tells Nero not to go near him, and she also tells him there is a shadow behind him which seems massive. As Nero goes near Yoongyong, he whispers in his ears to run away. A huge monster comes from behind and stabs both the boys. Yoongyong begs Nero to forgive him. Nero falls on the ground and dreams about his birthday celebration with his grandma, and after a while she suddenly falls on the table, terrifying Nero, and she warns him to protect all the entrances. Nero wakes up and is fully charged with power. The monster is shocked to see Nero back and with all the blue fire around him, he looks fierce and almighty. Luna is also startled to see Nero with blue fire around him. She cannot believe he has the powers of blue fire. Nero falls on the ground unconscious and next he wakes up with bandages over his body and wonders where is he. He finds himself in a new place which seems like a house but very different from any normal house. The windows are all barbed. He quietly walks around the place to find out more about it. He notices the doors to be too tall. He walks into a room which is full of different kinds of weapons, and he seems to not understand why a house has so many facilities. He feels this house to be dangerous. Furthermore, he suddenly hears music, and it gets closer. He takes a weapon and is ready to attack the person and suddenly sees Luna. He stops and just looks at her. Nero asks Luna about who she is and how did she fight with monsters so swiftly. She avoids the question by telling she is amazed that he is still alive, as she thought he would be lying on the bed for days. Nero thanks her for saving him from the monsters and also inquires about Yumyong. Luna comforts him by telling he is alright and in a safe place and is getting treated. Nero feels happy, knowing Yumyong is alive and safe. Luna asks Nero to have some food, as she has not eaten anything since the day before. He refuses to eat and says that he cannot live with her as she has hidden her identity from him, and he would not want to stay with someone he does not even know. He walks to go the door to leave from her house. She warns him not go as he is physically not stable and needs some rest. She also tells him if he wishes to go, he should fight with her. He tries to attack her, but she easily pins him down to the ground and says he needs time to recover to be able to fight back. She also tells him she has cooked food for him as he is her first guest at home. He feels helpless and starts blaming himself for his grandma's death and all that happened in the school. He holds himself responsible for all these unfortunate instances and feels that he is the reason for all these troubles to everyone. Furthermore, he wants to know more about Luna. She tells him that she is his guardian and is here to save him. He is shocked to hear this, but she assures him that he will understand this eventually. They smell the food burning, and Luna is sad to see that the food she was cooking for Nero is all burnt. He asks her for the leftover ingredients and in no time cooks a delicious meal. She is shocked to see this and asks how did he learn to cook so well. He sadly answers he learned it from his grandma, and thinks about how close he was to her. The attack by the monsters at the school becomes a sensational news and the video is sent like a wildfire among students of different schools. Many refuse to believe it and call it to be scripted. In no time, the video is gone. The students cannot access it any longer as it gets banned. There are some people from a high-profile agency discussing this matter and want to stop this news from spreading. They discuss the kid seen in the video who seems to have superpowers. The chief of that agency says he wants to meet the kid immediately. He is informed that he is being protected by their agent in a safe place. At Luna's place, Nero recalls the time he spent with his grandma and tells her about how loving she was to him. He asks her if she knew about the demons. She smiles, telling him that the monsters are here for him. She takes him to a place where he can find all his answers and also the strength to fight those monsters. She mentions a secret organization that shelters people with superpowers and saves them from any harm. TGDCAM, the Great Defense Command Against Monsters, and they call it as M1. Furthermore, she takes him to a building which appears like a normal company to him, and he keeps asking if they call them as monsters. She explains to him that this agency need more people with powers to fight against those monsters, hence, they protect and train them. She takes him to the elevator, where another girl wearing the same school uniform in there. Nero is surprised to see this girl, and she looks strange to him. She carries a musical instrument with her and takes them to 15th floor. Luna addresses her as Erin. The place seems weird, like some laboratory with various devices and tools. Nero is shocked to see all this. The agents are watching them arrive through the cameras installed. They enter the room and Erin opens her musical instrument box which has weapons in it. Nero is surprised. She takes a gun and points at Nero. Luna is shocked, and she screams not to harm Nero as this is not what they were supposed to do. Erin shoots at Nero with some lasers and he quickly defends himself. The agency chief is observing all this from a distance. He is impressed by the way Nero uses his powers for defense. Nero worries about his demon coming in its form if he tries to attack her. He is scared if they assume him to be one of the demons and think him to be their enemy. He tries to tackle her attacks by using defense and does not attack back. The chief finds his powers very good, but at the same time wonders as to why Nero is not attacking back. Luna stops Erin and asks her to end this here. It seems to be a test of his powers to evaluate his strength. The chief calls Luna and Nero and questions Nero as to why he did not attack Erin and only defended her. Luna is angry as they did not inform Nero about anything and started attacking him. He tells her it was done to see how skillfully he would be able to fight any unpredictable attacks by the monsters. Nero tells him that he did it by defense and did not want to harm Erin and thus he did not attack her back. The chief tells him about the monsters who are trying to invade the human world and want to get rid of people with special powers so that they can easily conquest this world. He also tells them to get ready to fight the monsters, for which they will be needing special weapon training and their support. The chief gets a call from an agent and is asked to come over to discuss something crucial. He asks Luna and Nero to leave for now and would meet them next time. Nero asks him if all the demons must die. The chief is quite surprised at his question and tells him that all their efforts to coexist with them failed, and the only way is that they need to kill all the demons. Nero is worried as he himself is one of them. He quietly walks back with Luna. They see Lee Aaron, a 19-year-old M1 combat agent. Nero asks Luna if she is just like Aaron, a human fighter. She tells him they are combats, and she came here when she was too young after she figured out her powers. She also tells him Aaron is very fierce and reminds him of how she attacked him. Nero sees some people running to check some vitals. He asks Luna who they are, and she avoids by taking him to the other side. In the demon's portal, Chen is practicing his skills when Kum asks him about the demons who went to find Nero this time. He informs him that again none of them have returned. He is shocked and tells Chen to wait for the right time. They discuss that the entrance will definitely open, and they will have their way into the human world soon. Nero visits the man from the medicine store and tells him he would not want to suppress his powers using the medicine, but he would want to hide them from the world. He wants to use the powers without revealing his demon self to the human world. The man tells him for this he needs to practice a lot to train his powers to be totally in his control. Nero hastily says he wants to train. The man warns him it is not a matter of one day but needs constant efforts and asks him to meet him every day in the evening after sunsets for the training. At school, the kids discuss the monster attack and how there is no proof left about that incident. Luna asks Nero where he is going as he head out in the evening to meet the man from the medicine store for training. He just tells her he needs some fresh air and goes out without telling her anything further. He goes to the man, and he takes Nero to a place which seems like a warehouse. He sees that everyone has a secret place here. The man takes Nero to a door which leads to a hidden place where he can train himself without being seen by any humans. He takes out a wand which elongates and becomes a spear to test Nero's powers. Nero defends himself but does not fight back. The man decided to instigate him so that he fights back and his powers can be seen. He intentionally taunts Nero how his grandma died to protect a boy who does not even know to fight and tells him if he would be stronger she would have survived. This makes Nero angry and at the same time he decides to take responsibility of avenging his grandma's death and is determined to get stronger to fight with the monsters. The man notices Nero's change and senses the cold breath powers in him. He is shocked to see the blue fire and wonders how this can be possible as these powers belong to the eldest son of the king of the demon world. He realizes if this kid is the one whom Sana saved and came into this human world and if he is the descendant of the king. The gap between the human world and that of the demons is always kept in check by the humans. The demons are always trying to invade the human world, but the humans manage to keep them at bay. Once upon a time, the humans tried to invade the monster world, but their plan failed and all of them were killed due to their fragile bodies. The King Khan, who was the king of this portal, saved a woman from these humans, and eventually they fell in love, and she became the first human to be the queen of the demon world. She gave birth to a special child who had the powers of demon and was half boy and half demon. The man realizes that the boy Sana saved and ran away into this human world is none other than Nero, the prince of demon world and the eldest son of King Khan. The man teaches him to control his powers or else the suppressing might poison him. He hit him hard to release his power and says he needs to practice hard to use his powers according to his own wish. He pushes his powers in incense bottles which stores his power, and he can use this to overcome and practice. The man again takes him to the ground where they practiced earlier. He places the bottle and instructs Nero to make the power his by taking charge of them. He tells him that he will see many illusions which will attack him. They are nothing but his power is embodied in those strange illusions, and he needs to sense them and practice them. He opens the bottle and asks him to start to control his powers, from which his powers will be under his control, and he can get more powerful if he has all the control over them. There is strong smell and smoke from the bottle, which makes it difficult for Nero to smell any upcoming danger using his sense of smell. He senses something familiar force coming closer to him and within no time he is hit hard by that force. He thinks to be more careful so that he does not get hit again. This time Nero focuses hard and senses the movements of the force that is a thing in which his own powers are embodied. But to his surprise the thing attacks him even harder this time and it's too quick for his to defend. He falls and wonders if he has lost all high powers, if he is the old Nero who used to get beaten up helplessly by everyone. He suddenly realizes that he cannot lose and stands up with all his might and is determined to defeat that thing. He screams that he will kill everyone who is attacking him, the monster's powers. The man stares at the powers and the strong light emitted as Nero fights. He is shocked to see that he has the power of opening and closing the entrances of the worlds as with Nero. He is shocked to see this, as this authority only belongs to the king. The man stares at Nero in amazement. The man is shocked to see the extent of the power and apologizes to Nero for it. He comes and comforts Nero and tells him his powers are too strong to be controlled, and Nero feels bad that he failed this time but also reassures that he will conquer it anyhow even if it means he has to die. The man tells him he does not have to die for it. In the demon's world, Kum's minister informs him that the northern region is affected by winds and the place for demon world is getting smaller and smaller. He tells him the monsters are getting restless and are waiting to evade human world so that they have a good place to live. He asks to get Chen. Kum thinks that he cannot wait any longer to enter the human world as he might lose his position among the monsters. The minister calls Chen and tells him to meet Kum. Chen asks the minister to be careful and not talk against him behind his back as he has his ears everywhere and knows that he was trying to fill Kum's mind against him. He warns him that he has reached this position by shedding a lot of blood and he might kill him as well if he goes against him. The minister apologizes to Chen. At Luna's place, she asks Nero where he goes every night and why he seems so disturbed since he started going out. He avoids it by telling he goes to walk. She feels irked by his response and tells him to stop lying to her as they need not hide anything in their relationship. He asks what kind of a relationship do they have. She means it is a professional relationship where they need to work together as a team to fight against the monster. At the man's place where Nero practices, the man asks Nero if he is ready this time. Nero confirms that he is all set and will be able to tackle well this time. They begin the practice and the man releases the power from those bottles and reminds Nero that everything he sees is the embodiment of his powers, and he needs to use these to become the charge of his powers. The man also wonders that Nero has been practicing only for a week, and he has done really well in this time. He is amazed at the talent and also knows that it is the king's power and needs to be taken seriously. Nero sees many things ahead of him, and he knows that all these things are his own powers. Speed, strength, ice, barrier, and an undying flame. All these things are manifestations of his own power. He is determined to win this time. Nero senses that the strongest force among them all is the momentum. He decides to overcome the strongest first. He tries to sense its movement, but the momentum is very quick, and he fails to react. He further decides to focus harder as the momentum is very quick and has a strong desire to overcome the powers. He senses this and attacks its crown with all his might and overcomes it. He finally understands what the man said about controlling the power and making it his. Finally, he achieves and owns the powers. The man is shocked to see Nero winning and exclaims happily that he finally did it this time. He won his own powers and he has conquered them. Nero has finally owned his powers and acquired the control on them. At the M1 agency, it is seen that Lee Luna, Aaron and other such combatants are being trained. They are instructed to find the target on a building at the 10th floor. They have a time limit of 60 seconds. All the combatants seem confident and determined to win. Luna and Aaron reach there very quick. An agent named Jang Si-Hui uses weapons, and she is instructed that use of tool during conditioning is forbidden. Luna and Aaron are busy in the training and the officers watch them and feel happy about how well these two perform. They feel that these two have accepted each other rivals and that seems to be a good motivation. M1 leader Ha Yi-hyuk is busy watching the training of the combatants. He asks his subordinate about Nero. He is called by M1 Organism Defense Research Manager, Professor Han Xiaohua, to check something really important. They discuss that the agents are training very hard, but they might need to attain a higher budget for the use of high-energy weapons. She informs the leader that the monsters might appear in the cities sporadically, and responding with high firepower weapons might lead to civilian casualties. The leader feels the use of CQB close-quarter battle is of utmost importance. He visits the place where Young is being treated, and he asks if he is responding well. They tell him that the boy is surprisingly recovering well. He also discusses that he needs some clarification about him. He feels there is something strange about him, as he was dead when they reached the school gym. Later, when they were cleaning up the scene, they detected life activity in him. He asks if he can wake up now and if H has regained consciousness. She tells him that the boy will wake up if they try as he is just asleep due to the medications on him. He tells the doctor to take care of him and leaves. Luna sees Nero escaping in the night and wonders where he goes every day. He goes to the old man for practice. The man thinks about the tremendous powers Nero has and also thinks as now he has gained control over them, he has become unstoppable. He feels it would be better to test him once and suddenly throws many weapons at him at once. Nero is shocked, but quickly responds to it by defending himself from the attacks. The man observes how well he defends himself and wonders his gaze has changed a lot, and he can easily dodge the weapons and also reads the movement at once. The man thinks that Nero has not only gained strength, but his attitude towards combat has changed a lot. The man observes that Nero is not just quick, but he is targeting the enemy's current as well. Nero realizes that the rotors would keep flying if he just dodges them, and simply hitting them would not stop them. Nero realizes that he needs to target the source of this force to stop them completely. The man praises Nero for responding calmly in front of a dangerous weapon, and now he tells Nero that he will release his actual powers. Nero is stunned, and he sees the man turning huge and powerful, and the man challenges Nero to knock him out now.